Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll be taking you through a presentation called It Takes a Village to Raise Your Website, Just Maybe Not Your Village. I'll be your presenter today. My name is Dan Gemp, and for today's purposes, I am just another villager. My goal today is to shed some light upon the different areas of expertise required to be good at building out your own website, all the different team members and areas of expertise involved. And what qualifies me to do that is that I've been running a digital marketing agency for about 15 years here. And we're working with addiction treatment centers and mental health centers in 37 different states and have a team of just about 60 people at the moment. And many of them are of the expert skill sets that I will be describing today. So speaking from experience. Today's webinar is sponsored by my agency, Dreamscape Marketing, and we will have a Q&A at the end of our talk today. So you can submit a question on the bottom left of your screen at any point during the presentation. All questions will be answered during the last 10 minutes of the program today. And for resources, you can find a PDF of the presentation as well as additional resources under the headshot image located on the left of your screen. If you need help for any assistance throughout today's webinar, please email Melissa Pangaro at mpangaro@naccme.com. For NADAC credit information, in order to receive credit, you must watch the program all the way through the Q&A section at the end of the presentation. Do not leave the console. Please continue to stay on the platform and you will be automatically redirected to an evaluation landing page. If this is your first time attending a webinar in 2019, you will need to create a NACME account where you are first directed to the landing page. For all subsequent webinars you attend, you will already have an account and will simply need to log in. After the completion of the evaluation today, you'll be able to download or print your certificate. NADAC credit is only offered for the live broadcast. And with that, we will begin today's webinar the way I begin every day of work, Googling something I want to know. So the question we'll be answering today is, what team do I need to make a truly great website? And I'll be approaching this from a variety of angles. So if you're an executive or a treatment center owner, director of marketing or a CMO, or anyone in a leadership role, this very much will apply to you in terms of assembling that right team of the right types of people to have a successful website build at an enterprise level and specifically for healthcare. So our agenda today is going to cover a few different disciplines. You're going to learn what those disciplines are and how many team members are needed to successfully build and deploy an enterprise healthcare website. How many digital marketers does it take to screw in a light bulb, essentially? We're also going to assess whether internal contributors can effectively communicate to all site audiences, including Google. So do you already have the team? Do they work for you in-house? Are they all great internal resources? Or do you need that external point of view and perspective to really build a great website that resonates with multiple audiences? We'll be discussing how to deploy best practices, the latest and greatest technologies, and marketing tactics that help your website to rank higher, as well as its content to be deemed relevant to your services. We're seeing these increasing trends in question and answer, semantic search, the use of digital assistants, and so that relevancy is really where things are headed. That really is the future of search algorithms and how you need to be structuring your website. So we'll really dive into that. And by the end of today's webinar, you should be able to evaluate if your current website is effectively communicating your value propositions to all of the intended audiences. You don't want to be leaving anyone out, whether it's colleagues, employees, potential employees, your patients themselves. So we're really going to decipher the audiences to address and how to address them. So why does my treatment center website require a whole village to build? This is, believe it or not, one of the most competitive industries on the entire internet. And in healthcare specifically, it is a top 3 sector of healthcare. You're right up there with mesothelioma treatment. And you have some of your own very interesting statistics. So if any of you are familiar with the Google Ads platform, those paid ads that show up at the top of your search results, you'll realize that they've gotten more and more expensive over time. And currently, you can't even participate in that system if you're a substance abuse center unless you've obtained a LegitScript certification. And LegitScript is a third-party background check company that was hired by Google to help regulate this industry, to make sure that you are an accredited, privately owned or publicly owned treatment center at your real address with your real staff. They're trying to cut down on fraudulent advertising. With all of that said, for the last 7 years, specifically in addiction treatment keywords, there has been a 12% annual increase in cost per click for the same keywords. It is very much inflationary, and oftentimes treatment centers do need to participate, or if you're a brand new company, you'll need to put some budget towards that to begin growing your census. But realize that as a sustainable channel and the level of competition you guys have, you're all at the same auction for the same keywords that drive the same people, and the cost for those clicks goes up by 12% a year. Individual centers' advertising budget. So you're up against, whether you're big or small, there are many, many, many individual treatment centers in the country that are running $2 million a month or higher advertising budgets, primarily digital marketing. And you'd be surprised, these aren't just the high bed count multi-location groups. Some of them are large campuses, some of them are small multi-location groups, but you are up against some pretty large ad dollars, and so you need to be tactical in building your website. If you build it better, then you can beat the big spenders. The value of an average patient in this space is still over $24,000, and the relapse rate in this space is still well over 70%. I have seen higher than 80 and 90% in different publications. But for today's purposes, the premise here is simple. There's a high dollar value per patient. There's a high percentage of essentially repeat business, and I hate saying it that way, but it's a reality. And we're in a mostly private held market. Most treatment centers are owned by individuals or smaller private equity operators, and the opportunity for high margins and high EBITDA is a driver for rapid growth. It makes a company desirable for acquisition. So you're in this hugely competitive space with very large ad spend and very high dollar patient value. But there is such fierce competition because treatment centers have been able to sell for as high as 11 times what they're earning, 13 times what they're earning. The multiples I've seen recently range anywhere from about 4 to 7 times earnings. So factor that in, but also realize that more than 80% of your patients will Google your treatment center before deciding to come to you. And this is true whether you're a small private practice or a huge conglomerate. The statistics we saw were actually from a study done 2 years ago from Google with Compete.com. And it specifically included 100 private treatment centers around the country. 83% of those patients didn't just use a search engine, they specifically used Google before making their decision on where to go for treatment. So it is important. The way you build your website needs to be primarily for Google. And it does change the rules. It does change how you position your brand, the words you might choose to use, how you leverage keywords in the search algorithm to fuel your success. So pair all of that with the fact that this industry has hit its peak while new technology has hit its peak. So the latest version of smartphones and secure HIPAA telecommunication, right? We've got this scenario where the opioid epidemic is hitting its highest levels while telehealth is getting rolled out and billing systems are driven by stronger and stronger software. Our audience is typically about 70% of your audience is going to be on a smartphone, not just a smartphone and tablet, but specifically a smartphone. And that's now inclusive of senior citizens. It's not just a millennial market anymore. So factor in a fragmented industry where there are different business models. There are medication-assisted treatment facilities. There are outpatient centers. There's residential detox. There are programs that only operate in the evenings, that concept of going to rehab after work. And you'll see a lot of copycats. You might have this amazing website and this amazing marketing plan, and some new small treatment center down the street essentially copies all your ideas and builds a very similar website for themselves. And unfortunately, that's a reality in the space. So you need to be proactive. You need to have a team that realizes the job is never done. And so your website, if you take anything from this webinar today, it is that your website is never finished. You must always be in an additive process, and you must always be innovating with your content, or you'll fall behind. So in this space, there are very few brand differentiators. A lot of treatment centers do provide the same levels of care, and the descriptions I often get from clients are, oh, you just have to be here to feel the warmth. Well, unfortunately, if you can't describe that to me on a website and I'm not there, you're going to lose my attention. So some of the brand differentiators you can focus on are going to be media assets. You'll need to produce videos. You'll need to feature your clinical team members, your executives, your mission, and you'll find that your patients then relate with your organization at a cultural level. If you don't have a strong organizational culture, you're not going to have many differentiators, and your only options are really going to be to compete at a retail level, going after the same keywords and the same kind of web traffic that your competition is. Your goal with your website in this industry specifically should be to create trust. You need to alleviate fear, demonstrate respect, and show pictures of beds and food, quite frankly. But that recipe will allow you to communicate trust through your web platform. Frankenstein! I'll be telling a bit of a story today, but I have encountered many a website that were pieced together, kind of a hack job scenario from different parties over the years, and they're truly Frankenstein's monster. And in the old Frankenstein movies, the villagers always thought they could handle the situation all by themselves. They always thought, hey, you know what? We'll just grab our pitchforks and our torches and we'll just chase this monster out of town and that crazy scientist who made the monster in the first place. But they weren't qualified to do that. It ended up being an unruly mob and a series of misunderstandings, and the result was the monster would wind up killing off several of them. By the end of the movie or the story, they would always end up with a temporary win after burning down windmills and houses and blowing up castles or dams in the process. So was it really worth the win, or was it a really painstaking process because an unruly group of unqualified people was involved in trying to solve that problem? So no matter who it is, I want everyone thinking today that it's very possible that a DIY approach here, a do-it-yourself approach, really might not be the best approach to developing an enterprise healthcare website. And for some reason, there's this comfort level in addiction treatment where my friend built the website, or, oh, I have this old employee who did it as a freelance project. But you're providing enterprise healthcare services and you're billing insurance companies in many cases, and I don't understand why you wouldn't approach your website the same way a sophisticated medical group would, a hospital in building their own website. And that incorporates marketing, technology, and design. So I'm going to share a few stories before I get into the specifics today, but how do you know if you're building a web monster? How do you know if you're turning your website into Frankenstein and it's going to be a questionable series of results? These are actual quotes, unfortunately. I've been working in this space. We've been in business for 15 years, and I've been working in this space for over 12. We have built about 600 mental health websites. So these are some of the quotes that have just stuck in my memory, and they all point to different series of challenges that will result. So the very first one, these centers, these are from treatment center executives of centers that generate more than $20 million a year. So they are not small businesses. My wife has an excellent eye for design, and so she'll run point. Well, that's fine, and maybe that's completely true, and maybe she has a robust acumen in graphic design and a background in digital advertising. But the way it's presented is simply, well, she has better taste than I do, and so she'll be in charge of it. And that's fine, but it may or may not qualify. I have heard that very casually, yeah, our web girl went through our program and is just a social media whiz. Okay, it sounds like she has a general understanding of social media and can speak from a firsthand perspective on recovery and struggles with substance abuse. But does that qualify her to oversee technical software developers and web developers? Maybe, maybe not. The third one, right. So one patient's brother needed a job and is a web developer. And actually now that patient works here too on the outreach team. So networking is always good. And I have found some of my best employees from clients, partners, vendors, and they were referred in to work here. But the challenge in that statement is that the qualification, you didn't find a technical genius necessarily. You found a friend of a friend. And now that friend works here too. So what's going to happen when you have to fire one or the other due to performance? The next quote, I spent a lot on our last website, like $3,000. So can you beat that? I never really liked it anyway. And this one, I'm not saying that it's cheap by any means. You can get amazing websites oftentimes for low costs, a few $1,000s. But the challenge is when it comes to web design, and I'll show you why, you simply get what you pay for. And it's either a degree of quality assurance and expertise, right? Or it's a review process and an aesthetic that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you love your own digital broadcast that comes out through your website. This one is my favorite because this happens all the time. Well, I'll have a freelancer build the site, then you guys can market it. I think that you all need to realize that the website is no longer a one and done project. It's no longer a start and finish process. It is now a living, breathing salesperson. But the beauty is it never goes to sleep. It can speak to all audiences. It always uses the right vocabulary and imagery. And it doesn't violate HIPAA if you build it right. So the concept of saving $1 now and then trying to market against enterprise competitors, you'll find that you didn't build the foundation you need to successfully add to. There is a limit to the bandwidth that website can house in terms of content and types of media and how well it loads and how well it pleases the Google gods. And then the final quote here today is, my guy is a web guru and has built us a custom theme if you can just update the design a little. Now this one was presented to me in a Brooklyn accent that I didn't want to even attempt today, but my guy is a web guru. Stop right there. There is no such thing. There are excellent programmers, there are excellent designers, there are excellent marketing content strategists, there are excellent copywriters, but there is no such thing as a true web guru. And many people can understand all of the different components. I work in it every day, and many of you probably work in the same profession and have a broad understanding of these different skill sets and the roles that they play. But to say that that singular person could have built you a custom platform that outperforms all others, and then in the same breath say, but he would need your help in updating the design, it already proves that you have a web developer in that situation and not a graphic designer. And that would be indicative to me that those same people cannot also be an expert copywriter. So, are villagers even good at hunting down Frankenstein in the first place, right? If it's a bunch of amateurs going out and grabbing pitchforks and torches and just chasing the guy around, they never had training in the first place. They're not expert monster hunters. And so Joe, the village tailor, he knows how to make clothes, but what does he know about tracking down monsters? You're going to find that there are multiple skill sets needed, different types of professionalism to build the world's greatest website. You need your, stereotypical web geeks, and you need your technical, analytical, math-based people that can build you a fast-loading, high-performing, web hosting-based platform. And then you need marketing experts, really looking at design and aesthetic and brand message. It's more of an academic approach to your marketing. Instead of saying buy one, get one free, you need to find messaging that resonates with each of your intended audiences, fine-tune that messaging, find a section of your website that is the best possible place to house that messaging, and it needs to all be by design. The concept here of a sales funnel or lead generation is really where I'm going with this. So your web guru here, your web geek or your IT guy, whoever's providing the technical infrastructure, is one skill set, but that is very, very rarely the same person that provides compelling marketing, copywriting, and design. Is this your village's mayor? So more rarely than that person possessing a variety of skill sets is that this person has the ability to lead and oversee all of the required skill sets. I have a business partner, and he is the technical one. He is our CTO. I know about marketing and sales and that kind of thing, but the technical infrastructure is a different, left brain, right brain kind of a skill. So digital marketing versus web development. The skill sets needed here would be web design, web development, which is more programming and coding, web content writing, search engine optimization, conversion optimization. That's more of a design and user experience skill set about how menus work and how it looks and feels on a cell phone, for example. Data analytics. How do you know if your site is even getting traffic? And how do you know if it's the right kind of traffic to all of that content you invested so much money in? You need to make sure that your marketing messaging and audience targeting are on point. Well, that is very much a marketing and communication skill set. Industry knowledge and vocabulary. Well, does your IT guy know all of the vocabulary that your clinical team uses every day about co-occurring disorders and dual diagnoses and underlying mental health conditions that often self-medicate with substance abuse? So in those scenarios, you're not really going to find this magical unicorn that knows all of these things at an expert level. Now we get down to the nitty-gritty. Hosting and domain name setting expertise. Is it truly that important? I'll just use GoDaddy. Well, it is if you intend to be HIPAA compliant or not get your website hacked. Things that were not of great concern 10 years ago are now of great concern in this space, because if someone hacks your website and it integrates with your other sales systems like your CRM, or if you're storing a contact form database on your web hosting, you might have hundreds of violations of HIPAA all on your website. So little things like that matter a lot in terms of liability and simply efficiency, how effective your site is. Project management and budget management are the two skill sets that I often find clients just forgetting about. Do you want this project to happen quickly? Then you'll need someone in charge of organizing all of the content, all of the image files, and sharing them with whoever's producing the site. Budget. If you want it to be on time, if you want it to be on budget, then there are certain checkpoints along the way that you need to make sure you're not overextending. If you are planning to build a 20-page website and it ends up being a 40-page website because you continuously add things along the way, that could potentially double the cost. Or if it's highly valuable content, it could potentially double the investment and allow you to have a marketing channel that is coming out of the gates with more reach and more impact. Does your village have a web hero? And by this, I mean that guy that can always fix your computer no matter what. I mean that marketing coordinator where she always writes winning PR pieces, and anytime you've ever published something, you get thousands and thousands of likes and views and colleagues calling and singing your praises. And these people exist in a village, right? You've got enough folks in your team that someone is succeeding on any given day at something wonderful. Otherwise, they wouldn't all still work there. Addiction treatment marketing is unique, however. It is a combination of medical and hospitality skill sets. Your marketing messaging is both medical outcome focused, and please, you'll be comfortable here. Come in and enjoy our slightly luxurious amenities. But you have to be careful not to overdo it in either category. You're not able to guarantee any kind of results. You might find different outcomes for different substances with different clinical directors. On the hospitality side, I have seen way too many organizations overemphasize luxury and the thread count of their sheets, and that's not what it's about. It's about comfort and respect. It's actually very similar to how you would choose a university to attend as opposed to a hotel to go to vacation in. Your web and IT skill sets, okay, those are engineering skill sets. It's a very specific type of person. So that guy that can always fix your computer no matter what you did, that is a web or IT programmer or network administrator. they'll be very useful in setting up your hosting and domain settings. The marketing skills. Who is going to write all the content, right? And who's going to choose who the audience is for that content? It isn't you. You're not the audience. But realize these are three different people. Someone that has an understanding of the marketplace and that balance of medical and hospitality. Someone that has engineering skills to build you an infrastructure for your website. And someone that can come in and truly communicate your message to your colleagues and family and alumni and potential patients. So be careful anytime your web guy is a self-proclaimed guru since 1991, he might not be. And my example here would be an outdated IT guy. I have heard many an IT guys say that they want to host their website internally because they have their servers in-house. That would not be a recommended best practice for, I don't know, we're pushing a decade now. So you might have a tech guy who has created a network for you that is self-contained and easily managed, and if they simply don't ever change anything or update anything, it can't break. But it doesn't mean they're not wildly outdated. So oftentimes, if you have a team of these different disciplines and different experts at their different disciplines, they will be able to hold each other accountable. And so whether you're the project manager supervising your own team members, whether you outsource this function to build a website to 3 different contractors, whether you use agencies, the point of different disciplines all working towards the same goal is accountability and quality assurance. So don't just trust a singular web hero with building you the world's greatest website. Now, what do you need to be successful? What do you personally need if you're going to oversee a successful website build? You need a plan, and that plan has to cover budgets, goals, and the right experts from the village. Otherwise, you're going to get to that moment where you realize you have too much work and not enough daylight to do it in. So if you have the right experts, they can accomplish in 1 hour what might take you all day. You can give them a concept or a theme, and they can run with it and bring you back pages and pages of content and multiple design options, and you love them all. So truly successful website production is about time management, right? How do you most efficiently use your experts to run up the smallest bill possible while getting the best work possible? And the risk here is in stretching yourself too thin. You can, you can create and maintain a healthcare site, but you can't neglect any specific function there. You can't have the wrong team member dragging out the project. And if you have even one person in that group that's the wrong person, it can cause major delays. If your design team can't produce graphics because they need to be produced and formatted around the written content, and that content is delayed because your copywriter doesn't know the vocabulary of the industry and you're going through round after round of edits, these are the things that will drag out a 2-month website build into a 6-month website build, or I have heard nightmares about year-long website builds in the space. These delays are never free. These delays cost you either time or money, and either is a budgetary overrun. If you have payroll staff members overseeing this project or working on this project, then time is directly money. You're paying these people for more work on a website that isn't finished. So all of this comes down to the fact that leadership is required. There should be a point person, maybe you, overseeing the project, but you need to present that plan, those budgets, and those goals to the entire team so that nobody's working blind. And you need to guide them through a process and a quality assurance checklist, essentially, to make sure that you're getting what you need to represent the company. Are you the village mayor? Are you that leader? Well, as your company's marketing leader, you know your business, and you would theoretically know the industry inside and out. But if you're non-technical, if you don't know how to do these things or how to supervise these things, then you might not be. You might need to be involved, but not directly managing the process. Do you know on-page SEO and off-page SEO? If you don't know what SEO stands for, it's search engine optimization. Do you know graphic design? And by that I mean, do you know the tools that someone will be using to create your layout? Are they using Visual Composer inside of WordPress to create a modular theme and design? Are they using the latest and greatest Adobe software to match both page components from InDesign and Photoshop, good old-fashioned Photoshop for editing and image size reduction? But those specifics are the areas where you can have a slow-loading website as a result of lack of oversight. Keyword research. If you call a page services instead of addiction treatment services, then you're going to rank the same way as a local oil change place that has a page called services. So your keyword research, you might have a sitemap and say, hey, I want a page that is about our services. But someone involved in that content process with an SEO knowledge base would have to revise that sitemap and say, hey, let's not call it services, let's call it addiction treatment services or addiction treatment services location, right? And then Google knows what the site is about and where you're located. Call tracking software, digital marketing analysis, installing all of these tools, integrating your contact forms and your phone numbers with your CRM software. And by that I mean Salesforce or Kipu CRM, any of those enterprise solutions for the industry. But do you have HIPAA compliant hosting? There are hosting companies that are HIPAA compliant by default because their firewalls are massive and they are on encrypted networks. And then there are others where you're just getting low-cost hosting and you are exposed. You are easily hacked if somebody guesses your password. There are tools out there like Cloudflare, and Cloudflare randomizes your IP address. So a denial of service attack, which is a common type of a hack, where somebody is trying to visit your website millions and millions of times until it simply crashes. Many of you have heard of that occurring. Your hosting is what determines whether or not that can even happen. So if somebody started attacking your hosting IP address, it could change it magically, and your site is completely secure. These things do matter. These are all little variables and little components to how well your website performs as a marketing tool and a growth engine for your business. Best practices for contact forms. Are you asking for too many fields of information? Are you asking for not enough? Are you bold enough to ask for social security numbers and insurance information on a first introduction? Or do you just want general contact info and get somebody on the phone? And has your team realized, and do you realize as the leader of this effort, or the supervisor of this effort, that this whole thing needs to be developed for a mobile-first user experience? You might make the design on a desktop or a computer screen first, but the optimized user experience is going to be somebody on a smartphone most of the time. So by the time you get to launch, you need somebody who's savvy at testing that. So what role do you play in your village? You're not building this website for yourself, and I can't say that enough, but you are not the intended audience of your website, even if you're the head of marketing and you want it to contain all your wonderful marketing stuff. Executive bios do not get read, period. They're some of the least trafficked pages on a website. There are some clinical directors of repute who do get decent amounts of traffic because their colleagues are referring to them by name. Other than that, the most commonly trafficked pages of a website are galleries where they contain pictures of beds and food. Those are the most important pages of your website. Program overviews, so simple things like gender-specific treatment. But you don't make a page called gender-specific treatment. Nobody searches for that. You'd make a page called men's rehab program, women's rehab program, heroin rehab program. Whatever keywords might match a specific program overview that you offer, those pages are commonly searched. So again, is any of this content for you? Not yet. Testimonials and reviews, those are trust factors. And I said all the way back on slide 1 that trust is the goal here. Your website needs to establish trust. Alumni resources. You may have people coming back to treatment multiple times, or you may have successful people that are out there as evangelists living life well in sobriety and in recovery, and they're telling the world to come to you because you were able to help them. And so alumni resources, and this could come down to life skills and job placement. It could come down to meeting finders. those types of resources are valuable. They are irreplaceable. Even the fact that you're still in touch with your alumni. If the person on the other end of the phone or viewing your website is a concerned family member, and they simply see that you're still in touch with your alumni and care about them, that might be a differentiator if they're comparing you to a treatment center that has no content about that on their website. Family education and resources. Anybody working in this space knows that addiction is not a disease of isolation. It affects everyone you know. And so educating family members, loved ones, providing educational resources. You'd be surprised how many treatment center websites don't even have the 12 steps on them that do embrace the 12-step program. So letting people know the type of treatment their loved one is going to go through, that this isn't old school medicine, that there is a unique and custom approach here that is patient first, that kind of thing matters. And that content really needs to be worded the right way, and it is far from the same way you would speak to a patient directly. So you need to alleviate fear and show respect and comfort as well, but it's not in the same way, not in the same phrasing. Your professional colleagues. Now, this group of people might actually understand the words co-occurring and dual diagnosis, but your general public will never use those terms, and CBT and DBT and all that good stuff. Transcranial magnetic footsie-fratsie, right? So you need to make sure that you're using the right messaging, the right vocabulary for the right audience. If you're not the one who should oversee that, then you shouldn't be the one overseeing this process. You should task someone else with that. Recruiting. Your website can be a tool for many, many things. In my own experience running this business, we have gotten most of our most successful people through our website. People that read all about us and our culture, they saw our work, they see testimonials, and then they choose you. They want to be aligned with your brand and your mission because you properly communicated it to them. So realize that there's a lot of recruiting that can be done. It all is typically local, so you can put geographic keywords in that content or write blog articles about it. Event marketing, right? Come see us at these conferences. Sales tools. Here are some virtual tours of our treatment center. Are you a potential referral partner or professionally licensed colleague? Schedule a meeting with our clinical director to see if you support our treatment initiatives. And even the way you customize your contact forms and the way you integrate with your other operations tools. So your CRM systems, your EMR systems, any kind of business intelligence dashboards that you might provide to your managers or to your investors. If you're not comfortable addressing all of those audiences, then you're not going to succeed in building your website for the most important audience, which you're all thinking is your patient, but I'm actually telling you is Google. So, I have a marketing and web guru. Well, we've been talking about that. You can't possibly be an expert on everything. No villager can. No one can be that guru, and the smartest business leaders know that, right? So if you're running a business or you're running a marketing budget and you're trying to successfully deploy a website, anyone who comes to you and says, oh yeah, I'll write everything, design everything, I know all the vocabulary, you're going to find failure in at least one of those categories. Talented designers, writers, SEO people, these are experts. It's not a weakness to ask outside experts for help. Some of the best CMOs in this industry I have had the pleasure to speak with on panels and maybe never even do business with, but as I get to know them, what they are excellent at is identifying people that are better than them at a specific area. And they go all in. They find the best person they can find, a right-hand man for design, the world's greatest copywriter. And that's where the thought leadership in this space comes from, that everybody copycats. So think through your own experience as a consumer. When do you hire experts? And the two universal answers I get to that question are lawyers and plumbers. Very rarely would you find yourself in need of one or the other and not hire an expert. The potential consequences are catastrophic in either scenario. So in your marketing, if you want to be perceived as an expert in treatment and what you do and a strong brand online and a high-ranking website that drives lots of traffic and inquiries, then you should probably hire experts to position you as such. And it doesn't matter how you do it or who they are. I believe that the whole concept of delegating to these specialists and specific disciplines is where you will find your success. So who do I need? Well, a truly successful website requires all of these disciplines, each planning from their own perspective, but they've got to bring it all together in the end. So one or two people trying to do everything quickly are going to become overwhelmed. You're going to need analysts and writers and web developers and conversion optimizers and social media marketers, and they're all going to want to be in there working at the same time, of course, and somebody will accidentally overwrite somebody else's work. So you can lose objectivity and fail to achieve your desired goal. But if you have these gurus and you project manage and share the budget and share the timeline with everyone, then you can orchestrate, a working plan that people can do in phases. Maybe the content comes first, and then the design, and then you need to provide photography, and then you need to provide some clinical protocols and overviews of your alumni programs and whatnot. So realize that to maintain objectivity, to make sure you're building your website for Google and then for your patients and their concerned loved ones, that you have to time these things properly, put the right resources in the right order to be successful. You can never be done, and I hate saying that, but in this day and age, the web is ever changing. The mysterious Google algorithm has updates weekly, it seems, at this point. But what is interesting is Google is actually very simple. It simply evolves, it learns. All Google does is read text. It is simply software that is able to go out and crawl the internet and read text. And Google owns YouTube, and they convert all that video, they transcribe it all to text, and they use that for search results as well. So if the internet is ever changing and everything is being formatted more and more for mobile devices, what is fantastic today, right, the best web design and navigation is over a year old, it might not be fantastic anymore. So to stay up to date with the internet itself, you have to realize that you're going to have to constantly innovate. Your website will never be finished, but the platform, the foundation can be built such that you won't have to change it for years and years and years to come. You simply update the content, a little bit of the design, a little bit here and there along the way. Today's best practice technologies that most of you do not have, and when I say most, I mean 90% plus. Accelerated mobile pages. This is a free technology invented by Google that they favor in search results. So every single page of your website, if you do a search on Google on your phone, you'll see a little lightning bolt next to about half of the search results. Those are accelerated mobile pages. You simply need a good web developer to be able to deploy them the right way. If you don't have them on your current site and it was built recently, you probably don't have a very good web developer. So it is a symptom, not a source. Most of our clients are seeing about 15% of their phone call volume come through those accelerated mobile pages. And the reason is this. If somebody is sitting in a slow Wi-Fi signal in a Starbucks, or they're outside of their office because they don't want to be searching for, heroin treatment while they're at work, if they're on slow Wi-Fi, it's going to take a long time for your beautiful multimedia-rich website to load. So this accelerated mobile page is going to load much more quickly on slow Wi-Fi. And that's the whole reason Google created it. But then they favor that in search results because it's better, faster user experience. Which takes us to point number 2, PHP 7. It is safe for you to assume that the entire internet is programmed in good old-fashioned HTML. But over time, there are lighter weight programming languages. So you can now accomplish in 10 lines of code what used to take 100. And PHP 7 has been out for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half. And it is simply the latest and greatest hypertext markup language that you can program in. And you could build a website that is identical to yours, and it would load 2 to 3 times faster if it is simply coded in PHP 7. So those accelerated mobile pages are free technology. You just need to build them into your website. PHP 7, is simply a programming language that a web developer would need to code into your website. Google Tag Manager. So Google realized that everybody wants to track everything. And so your Google Analytics, your Google Search Console, your call tracking metrics account, your Salesforce tracking, all of that can now live in a single bucket. It can all live in Google Tag Manager, which is free. I wonder if Google favors their own tools. Well, I do tell you this. They do check whether or not there is a Google Tag Manager installed on your website with a bunch of tracking scripts inside of it. So as a best practice for marketing to make sure your website is competitive, if you're going to track anything, track it all through Google Tag Manager. It will be the most effective for you. A mobile-first focus. So again, it's okay to design your website to look good on a computer screen, but more than half the time, and probably more like 70% of the time, your potential customers and referral partners are going to be holding a smartphone. So that experience they have, the ability to touch a phone number and call you, or to navigate program pages and read about you and learn about you, that experience needs to be smoothest on mobile. You're going to need to be mobile first in your messaging and your formatting. Schema. Schema is part of Google now. It is the relevancy part. And let's say you have a page called Men's Rehab Center. If you have Schema programmed into your website, then Google knows it should also rank for Men's Rehab Program and for any location-based keywords and Men's Rehab. And the example there is when Google finishes your sentences for you, when you type in shiny, red, and it either says Apple or sports car, that kind of thing. It is a schematic structure to nouns and adjectives. Schema will help your SEO. Schema will help your website to rank for a whole lot more things, of a variety of topics related to your content. And then finally, technical SEO. Many treatment centers in the industry are guilty of this, but you have slow-loading websites. Your pages are just called services instead of addiction treatment services. There are no links when you're on your website. If I'm on one program page, there are no links to the other program pages, and I might want to see them. So you're providing bad user experience, but also you have fewer on-site links. That is one of 70-some variables that Google looks at on a continuous basis. So if the internet is ever changing and things are faster and faster and more easily tracked and phone-based, and you can just tell Google what your site is about, you don't have to specifically go after one keyword that you feel like you should rank for, and technical SEO is now a skill set, maybe you need to make a marketing plan first and see how that web platform fits into your marketing plan. Let's say you succeed and you build a beautiful looking website with video and backgrounds and graphics and all the most amazing stuff. Too bad it has no chance of ranking in search results, but nobody puts SEO in a corner. So your website content, if it's well written, it still may be doing you no good at all without this technical SEO I mentioned. If it has been optimized by SEO experts, if your titles are strong and keyword rich, if the descriptions you write on every page please Google, right? It actually needs to be a description of the content on that page. It needs to be unique to that page. Don't just copy and paste the same description on every page of your website. Are other websites referencing your content? By this, I mean actual links. So if WebMD is one of the highest ranking medical websites on the planet, if there is a link from their site back to yours, or another mental health site back to the substance abuse content on your site, then Google says, okay, then this site must be very authoritative on those topics. And so you'll find that the more backlinks you generate, the higher your website ranks in search results across the board. And there is a quantity to quality ratio there. You either need a lot of backlinks or a few really good backlinks from high authoritative sites, or both. So realize your website, you might build the world's most beautiful website, and if it has no backlinks and isn't connected to your Google My Business profile, and doesn't have your address on it, and doesn't load quickly, and isn't optimized for phones, it will still be invisible. So don't make that mistake. Always involve some kind of a technical SEO plan very early on as you plan out your website. Load speed and user experience. The three things to pay attention to here are your menus, so your main menu itself and how it functions on a phone. Call to action. So throughout the site, did you actually ask anybody to do anything? I have seen some beautiful websites with extremely strong branding in the space, and they never ask you to call them. There's a phone number up top in the corner, but it never says fill out this form to begin your recovery. It never says talk anonymously to someone in our admissions department. It never asks for your business, and it is okay to do that. This is a marketing portal that you are building for a variety of audiences on a platform that pleases Google. And then the final piece is, again, that mobile friendliness. You could just run a focus group of your own employees, and you'll be amazed how much feedback you'll get. But just say, hey, are you able to find all of our contact information? If you were shopping for our services and on your phone, would you be comfortable in reaching out to us? Did you find what you were looking for? And you'll get some really good feedback really fast from a small little focus group. And a few parting thoughts as we wrap up here, but the website isn't for you. You are not the audience. You might actually be the least important potential stakeholder of this website. So get over it. Objectivity is tough when you're too close to something. And in that scenario, all CEOs have a degree of ego, right? They were pursuing either freedom or power or trying to fulfill their dreams and believe they have a mission. And I share that mentality. But objectivity becomes that much more difficult. So if your website isn't for you, don't force content just to make yourself happy. Make sure it fits one of the key audiences you're trying to address. The number one reason to work with outside experts is the ability to get objective, unbiased input and true, out-of-the-box thinking from specific areas of discipline. So if your lawyer gave you a specific plan on how to behave in court, and you say, you know what, never mind, I'll just put myself on the stand. How would that have gone for OJ? How would that have gone for many, many, many people in these high-profile scenarios? So take the advice of an expert. If a plumber came to your home in an emergency situation, would you ignore their advice and do it your way because you think you're the big boss? So realize this as humbly as you're able to. You are not your target audience typically. You may understand them and you may have first-party knowledge of what they're searching for and the pain points you need to address for them. So be involved in the content side and the marketing side, but you may not even be the primary stakeholder at all if you're trying to address your colleagues, your alumni, to recruit for careers and job placements. But the one value to you in all of this is if you let your team find these experts, or if they are these experts, and they get organized and they deploy a winning website. Specifically in addiction treatment, we have found time and time again that equity value of your website is real. There have been groups that either end up selling or in bankruptcy still have a very nice website that's driving lots of phone calls. And these websites are worth tremendous amounts of money, millions of dollars in some cases. So realize that if you're producing content and desirable branding and desirable messaging and useful resources, and it's all secure and compliant and it pleases the Google gods, all of that is a recipe that will lead to new business, to patient growth, to census growth, to revenues, and it either gets factored in from a capital side as actual equity or from a mission side as value that you're providing to readers with a good internet experience. And as you get down to the end of these web projects, right, as you realize it truly does take a village and you're ready to celebrate and everybody on your team really stepped up to the challenge and helped you create amazing, compelling content, and you feel that it's a true representation of who you are and what you do, instead of a celebratory lunch, do a celebratory launch. And realize that's just the beginning. You're not finishing a website. You can no longer do that. You will not be done. But let the villagers return to their shops and do what they know how to do and contribute in those areas of expertise on an ongoing basis. Leave the monster chasing to the professional monster chasers. leave someone in charge. But in the end, you'll get the job done, and it will be more efficient and quicker than if you let one guru try to do it all. And they'll do it without blowing up any castles or dams along the way. So let the site be an ongoing, never-ending project, knowing that it was built on a solid foundation put in place by experts. Get to launch, that is the first day of the rest of your life on the internet, to truly begin. And with digital content, you can always add more. You can always improve. You can always delete what was there, compared to the world of print advertising, where you wrote one article and you can't undo it, you can't delete it, you can't revise it once it's made. You can always improve on your website, and that's a mentality that you all need to leave with today. So hopefully these points resonated with you, and we'll take questions in a moment, but hopefully you were able to learn the multiple disciplines involved here, from the design, the content, the development perspectives, project management, budget management. This should help you to assess whether your internal contributors can effectively do these things and communicate to your audiences, and whether you're prepared to communicate to Google. And deploying best practices, technologies, and marketing tactics to help the site rank higher and its content to be deemed relevant. So use accelerated mobile pages, connect your site with Google My Business, program in Schema. If you're able to, and you're going to do a refresh in the near future, make sure that refresh uses PHP 7 scripting. And evaluate if your current website is effectively communicating your value propositions to all intended audiences. Remember that you're not the audience. So once you define who that is, you do need to evaluate whether you're addressing them respectfully and directly. And with that, for those of you that will be attending the Treatment Center Investment and Valuation Retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona, in about a week or two here, I will see you there. And for everyone else, thank you very much for joining us. And there are additional resources available at dreamscapemarketing.com/resources. And just to do a few quick questions here, let's see. So how much does total site quality matter for paid search? Okay, so fair question, and I do get asked this a lot. If you're primarily going to run a paid search campaign on Google Ads or Facebook or both, the site simply doesn't need to be large. It doesn't need to be very robust, but you'll still need to address all audiences and all stakeholders. So my advice there would be to begin with maybe a 10 to 20 page platform with really compelling design. And I would make that content about your programs for those audiences. You might want to have an alumni page. You might want to have a specific substance page or demographics for men's and women's treatment. And then you may want a resource section for professional referrals. So that's the recipe for paid search is a bit simpler. You just need a robust landing page. Let's see. How important is my site for those other audiences if I use it mainly for professional referrals and recruiting? Okay, so fair question. And in this scenario, if you have your own outreach team or you're in a clinical scenario where you just get a lot of professional referrals because you're providing quality care, that's wonderful to hear, and recruiting. It just means that, again, you can probably run with a smaller website, have that careers page and put your job posts on your site itself. And for professional referrals, make sure your content is a little bit more clinical as opposed to retail. And you will want to address things like co-occurring disorders, mental health conditions, and a variety of primary diagnoses. So the other point I'd like to make on this is maybe the reason your site is mainly drawing professional referrals and recruiting is because you do not have enough content that appeals to a retail audience on a smartphone, and specifically highlighting your programs and clinical standards. So with that, you will all be able to download today's presentation, but I have hit our time limit, and thank you all so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.